I'm Marcel, and welcome to me screaming into the void mostly about books. I am doing Criminology's Read What You Own challenge, where my husband has picked out 100 of the books that we own, wrapped them up, given them all a number, and then I'm reading them one at a time. So I do not know which books that he has picked out, and he picked these books out quite a while ago. So some things have happened in the meantime, among other things, with Neil Gaiman. So I'm not going to talk about Neil Gaiman the person, because there are more wise people who are going to do that. I'm just going to give my thoughts about Nevermore. Now, while I was reading Nevermore, I was actually thinking a lot about Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling. And again, I'm not going to talk about J.K. Rowling. But what I found quite a few similarities between these two books, in the sense that they are books geared towards children that are writing a form of urban fantasy. At least the start is urban fantasy. And it made me Nevermore, just for the people who do not know, is about a young man who starts with helping a young girl on the street, as you should, and then she takes him into a world beyond his belief. And he is very often referring to going insane in this book. But the story isn't really what's important. What's important with the book is the setting. And that's what I also think is partly what's reminiscent with the first Harry Potter book. It's not really the story that is interesting, it's the setting. It's the characters that he is meeting in this Nevermore. And the fact that this is urban fantasy, it made me think, why urban fantasy? What does urban fantasy give you that, for example, more traditional fantasy, for example, Lord of the Rings, doesn't give you? Well, in Nevermore, London is its own character. It's very clearly that it talks about London with love. And as someone who has been to London quite a few times, while I don't know London as much as he does, I understand it. It is a love letter to London. And what it made me also think about, of course, is that when you are a child, the one thing that you really can't control is where you are. You are not the one who is deciding where you're going to live. You are not the one who's deciding where your parents are going to move you, which schools you are going to go to, who you are going to have in your environment. You can only react and decide how you are going to deal with the environment that you have been forced into. And it made me think about maybe that is why urban fantasy is such a brilliant subgenre of fantasy to use, especially when it comes to young adults. And when I'm talking young adults, I mean teenagers. Because when you if you, for example, live in London, you don't get to decide that. But maybe there is something more here. Maybe there is a part of London that you can go to, even if you are locked into being in London. Maybe there is something more here that you can escape to if London becomes claustrophobic. Because that's the only thing you can't really deal with and change. So it is a way of creating a way of exploring a form of escapism because you are given this sort of way, a form of bridge almost between where you have to be and where you want to be. And it made me want to read more books like Nevermore, where you are sort of urban fantasy for young adults. That's not really about the romance, because there were a lot of books that came out after Hunger Games that was playing on the, and not Hunger Games, there were a lot of books that came out after Twilight that was really playing on the urban fantasy, even if Twilight isn't in an urban fantasy, so in a sense it's not in a city, it's still a form of urban fantasy where you are living in the real world and the fantasy world coexists with the real world. So when Twilight came out, it played, I think, on a lot of these things, including a character who is forced to live in a certain place because of her age, and then discovers that there is more layers behind this place than what she feared and understands right now. So I'm not really interested in the romance books of urban fantasy, but if you have any good examples of urban fantasies that talk about exactly what I'm talking about now, leave them in the comments, because I want to read more books like that. And the second book that I've read, because I now want to try and read 2 and 2 books at the time, when it comes to this project, both because it can be easier to juggle 2 books, and also because not all books are books I can talk a lot about, but if at least I have 2 books, I can sort of have a good length of the video. So you must leave me comments in regard to if the 2 book works, or if I should go back to just having 1 book. But the second book that I read is Daphne du Maurier, The Breakthrough. And I love this book. I so much love this book. I am a fan of Daphne du Maurier. I think she is a wonderful mystery thriller writer. And this book is about a scientist that is forced, or he's not forced, but he is asked quite sternly, without much options, to go to help his boss's former colleague with a form of scientist project that he is doing. And he comes there and he has no idea what they are doing. And it's quite short, so I'm not going to spoil anything regarding it, because you just need to read it. But what I loved about this book is that the project they are doing is very alternative and very ethical questionable, as a lot of science fiction science is, in my experience. But what he does so well, what she does so well in this book, is that she manages to explain why this main character that we are following wants to do this project. Because it's so easy to question, well, why will he do this, or why will he do that? But at the same time, there is this... I work within the academia, and there is something about people, a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people are drawn to working in the academia, that is about this thirst for knowledge. Thirst for knowledge is a real thing. Some people wants to know whatever it is they are doing research on. I want to know everything. That has always been my problem because I jump from project to project, so I don't really get to become an expert in anything. But I absolutely understand this thirst for knowledge as a driving motivator, and how effed up things become when you have this thirst for knowledge as a driving motivator. So give me a moment and I'll find the quote. Okay, so here is the quote that I think, because Daphne du Maurier isn't the first or last science fiction author that writes about thirst for knowledge as a driving motivator for people to end up in weird situations. But she is probably the one that I think can explain it most. And so here we have the situation where MacLean is sort of presenting what they are doing research on. And he is saying that there is a slight fault in the processing unit, MacLean said. I noticed it last night. I'm sure you'll be able to fix it. This was the moment to express my regrets and tell him I had decided against joining his team and intended to return to London immediately. I did no such thing. Instead, I crossed the floor to the computer and stood by while he explained the circuits. Professional pride, professional jealousy, if you will, coupled with intense curiosity to know why this particular apparatus was superior to one we had built at AEL, proved too much for me. There are some overalls on the wall, said MacLean. Put them on, and we'll fix the fault between us. From then onward, I was lost. Or perhaps it would be more correct to say, I was won. Not to his lunatic theories, not to any further experiments with life and death. I was conquered by the supreme beauty and efficiency of the Charian One itself. Beauty may be an odd word to use where electronics are concerned. I did not find it so. Herein lay all my passion, all my feelings. From my boyhood, I had been involved with creation of these things. It was my life work. I was not interested in the uses to which the machines I'd helped to develop and perfect were ultimately put. My part was to see that they fulfilled the function for which they were designed. Until arriving at Saxmere, I had no other object, no other aim in life, but to do what I was fitted to do, and do it well. And how better can you explain someone as they are going down into the depths? So, yeah, if you've been slipping on that one. So, now I'm going to pick out my two next reads in this challenge. And, it's weird. This was filled with notes. I'm starting to see the light. It is weird that we have to make it a challenge to read our own books, in a sense, but that is the way capitalism works. So I'm going to read book 92 and book 15. So give me a moment and I'll be right back. Yeah. Book 92 and book 15. I was waiting for this author. This is a Norwegian author, Agnes Ravatn. And she is one of my husband's favorite authors. And this book is The Seven Doors. I have to check later if it has been translated into English. I think some of the books have probably been translated into English, but I will let you know. And this is reading just quickly on the back. Literary professor Nina Wisloff is at a sort of a crossroad. Her work is less and less relevant, and her house has to get demolished soon. Her husband is working tirelessly, and her relationship to her daughter is not the best. And then their tenant, Maurier, vanishes. Oh, that's interesting. And if someone wonders what this is, I am doing I have two book owning projects and book reading projects going on. One that I am actively focusing on, and one I am just collecting to be able to focus on. And that is, I'm going to read a book from each country of the world. And I also want to read a book from each municipality in Norway. So this note is because Agnes Ravatn is from Vindefjord. So that's what that one is for. And then book 15. Oh, Neil Postman. Is he originally Anglo-Saxon? So, I am drawing a blank on Neil Postman at this moment, but this series is a series based on philosophers. So there are a lot of philosophy books that have been translated and published within this series. So I assume Neil Postman is then a form of philosophy, a philosopher. And he is roughly translated. The book is called We Are Enjoying Ourselves to Death. And I will going to give me 2 seconds, and then I'll have to just Google Neil Postman very quickly. The book is actually in English called Amusing Ourselves to Death. And it is an examiner, and he works within media and trying to look at how television and later digital media have transformed public discourse due to us focusing on entertainment and enjoyment. So this is going to be a very interesting book to read, and trying to look at the thoughts of doom scrolling. So those are the two books I'm going to read for my Read What You Own challenge. Subscribe if you want to know my thoughts on the books, and thank you for listening to me screaming into the void.